Everybody, wait a minute. Everybody, wait a minute. Yeah, keep me right there. Everybody, wait a minute.
They say when you wear Black Power Media gear, you can accomplish anything. You play any and everything. From coaching, to kicking, to receiving, to running and juking. And oh my goodness, I see that again in slow motion. Get off me. And you're going to have a lot of haters coming at you, but what you got to do is you got to shake them off, and get to your goal and accomplish it. And when that's done, it's a beautiful thing. I'm talking about going hard, extra, for that extra point. And when it's done beautifully, you talking about touchdown. Oh, and the crowd goes wild and they're celebrating with you and everything. Man, let's see that again. Nice.
Black Power Media, baby. That's how we do it.
Now go to blackpowermedia.org and get you some of that gear. Empower yourself today.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.
Hey, what's up, world? Welcome to another edition of I Mix What I Like right here at Black Power Media. I'm Jared Ball, and I'm here with my main man, Geechee Yaw, and we're about to host a nice roundtable discussion regarding Kevin Johnson. A lot to get into this morning. Please invite a friend and do as ear doctor says, tell a friend to tell a friend, and it's on again, and jump in and join us. Geechee, how you doing this morning? Greetings.
Doing well, man. Doing well. Good morning, remixers, chat. Hope y'all having a beautiful morning. I'm in Baltimore, and I was having a little the last 2 nights I've been having a little birthday celebration in Miami and Baltimore, but
Miami and Baltimore. Well, happy birthday.
I had a layover in Miami, so I had to kind of kick it with folks. So
all right, well that's what's up. Making best of a situation. A lot going on. We're waiting for our guests to join us, and I don't know if Diallo is going to be here this morning.
Should,
but all I want to say for now. So let me just do this while we're waiting on a couple of folks to join us here this morning. First of all, big shout out to everybody in the BPM community, in the remixers, because we hit 20,000 subscribers. So, big shout out to everyone. Thank you for helping us get to that I think very important benchmark. I like her. I like this vibe of this GIF. So that's how I feel right now. I don't think I've given that energy yet, but that's how I feel. So I appreciate everybody, because I actually think that's a big deal, given what we are doing, what we are attempting to do as a collective, where we are politically. What we all know is out there in large, heavily promoted numbers. I'm impressed, and I appreciate everybody who has helped make that happen. And obviously, I think we want to continue to grow and expand. But we don't get we don't have advertising support. We don't get support from the algorithm. we don't get support from a lot of folks, I think, that should naturally be more supportive, but the politics just make it untenable. And yet I think we've done quite well. So shout out to BPM, shout out to all the remixers, and you know, right on. You know, let's continue to get it. Yeah, 20K graphics, that's what that is, you know. So thanks to all of you, and let's keep it moving. I mean, you know, Emma, you had me at 20, you know, and 20K, you know, I mean, that's big. So, you know, I think that's the right energy. So need y'all to clear the runway for Diallo. I don't know. We did. I don't know where Diallo is. His absence this morning is not on us. But you know, maybe he'll pop up here shortly. And you know, anyway. So greetings, everybody, and thanks for helping us reach that benchmark, and let's keep helping it grow. Got new merch, you know, got my new sweatshirt, got other stuff on its way, you know. Geechee getting compliments on the locks.
Appreciate it.
So that was one thing. So that's big. There's another thing. I've been continuing to read Stephanie Kelton's book, The Deficit Myth, about modern monetary theory. And I've just read a section of the book that is, you know, really interesting and self-validating, selfishly. And I want to continue to really, you know, and at some point really do a full deep dive on the show with the book, and maybe have her join us. But the short of it is she goes into the history of modern monetary theory and seeks to better explain for us the history of money and what the role of taxes actually is. So for those of us, and I remember doing this years ago, who read, for instance, Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations, there's a section in there called of Origins of Money, which I remember simply basically oversimplifying, say, money has only ever existed to manipulate people's behavior. That's its only function. So when I read this section of Kelton's book, where she's talking about the actual role of taxes and why in countries like this one that are sovereign in terms of their coin creation and wealth and money creation, and that's another discussion. But the U.S. is in one of those rare or exclusive categories of being able to do this and produce whatever it wants. She points out that we've been told always in basic economics and economic education teaches that we have to be taxed so that the country can afford whatever it is that it does. But that's not what it is, because the country can print digitally or literally as much money as it wants and invest it in areas of the economy where it can produce what it's able to produce and do whatever it wants. So the reason for taxes is to get people to, it's an incentivizing mechanism. It's meant to manipulate people's behavior to get them to support and participate in and produce in areas that those in power want things in the country to be produced. For instance, military, she points out parks or other communal whatever. So, and then she points to her sort of mentor and uses a story that he gives to explain how this actually works. And the story is simply this, that the guy is babysitting his grandsons, and he wants his grandsons to do chores in the house. And he says, if you do these chores, you will be rewarded with business cards that I'll give you. One card for dishes, one card for sweeping, two cards for dishes, 3 cards for mowing the lawn. Very quickly, he realizes none of this is getting done. Nobody cares. And the reason is because those cards don't have any value to his grandsons. So they don't care about getting the cards. So they don't need the cards. So they don't do the work. So he changes it up a little bit and says, okay, at the end of the week, if you want access to, if you want, access to the next week's worth of TV or internet or car or whatever you want, you need to give me 30 cards or 10 cards or whatever it is. So, of course, they say, well, how do you get the cards? Well, you need to get the cards by doing the chores. So all of a sudden they start doing the chores to collect the cards so that they can turn the cards in to get something that they actually want. That's how he says taxes, or she says taxes, are actually meant to function, to get us to produce in areas of society that we are not maybe initially want to produce and to participate in. And then you spend, as she says, your currency into existence. So just like as she says also in the game Monopoly, the game of Monopoly does not start with everybody going out here and chasing down initial accumulations of wealth. The game starts with the bank issuing out money to everyone that it then demands in return for certain goods and services that you want. That's how all of this is meant to happen. So in other words, long story short, as I see my guest showing up, so we'll move on. Long story short, the government in this country can do whatever it wants with its money, can produce as much wealth as it wants, could satisfy all of the issues in the economy that it wants, and decides by policy
message
to distribute those resources where it wants. All right, so that's it. We'll stop there for now. Let's get to the business of the day, because this is some more serious business, and I'm very happy to participate in this. So quick break. We'll be back here. Let's get it.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.
All right, everybody. So those who are faithful attendees to our routine morning show during the week, the Remix Morning Show, you will have seen the other day and previously on this platform, by the way, one of our next guests who in comradeship with our brother Kalanji was part of a call that Kalanji put out to, as I took it, our platform and beyond, to be more supportive of this particular case and issues related to it. So I immediately wanted to play my role humbly and have us play our role in heeding that call and extend the conversation that started again last week or this week on the Remix Morning Show regarding the specific issue of brother Kevin Johnson. So to do that, we are joined by a number of guests, specifically ML Smith, who among many other things is the Director of Community Engagement and Outreach, Missourians for Alternatives to the Death Penalty, and Dawn Oliver Ramsey, whose full title and role, please forgive me, I'm going to ask you to share with us because I do not have it in front of me. That is entirely my fault, so I beg your forgiveness. But welcome to the platform to the both of you. Dawn, let me start with you. If you would unmute and go ahead and clarify whatever your official role relationship is to this, and then ML, I'll have you take over and start laying out where we need to go with this discussion. And I, again, welcome. I appreciate both of you. But Dawn, thank you. If you would clarify for us.
Yes, good morning, and thank you for having me. And no worries, it's early, family. My name is Dawn. I am the co-founder and executive leader of Operation Liberation. We're a Black-centered, Black queer-led nonprofit here, rooted in abolition in Kansas City, where we do bail work. We operate a bail fund and mutual aid community offering. So I'm grateful to be here, happy to be supporting the work that my good sis ML is doing. So please, I want to hand it over to her.
Right on. Thank you for that, Dawn. And ML, please take it away. Yeah. Let's go. Let's lay out if you would, the basics, the case, the situation, the background, and then if we got the video clip, if you want to play some clips, whatever you want to do. But yeah. Anyway, please, and welcome to the show. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Dr. Ball. And you and that message me, I cannot with you in that sense. But thank you so much for having me. And my sis Dawn, she is definitely supportive of our work to amplify Kevin. I also call him KJ, so I'll go between the two. But I really wanted to talk today. Of course, Kevin is a young man on death row in Missouri. He has an execution date of November 29th. He has been on death row since he was 19 years old. And the reason for that particular sentence was because he killed a policeman in 2005. But there was so much that led up to that. There were so many dominoes that failed. And I really wanted, to kind of delve into that conversation a little bit. And I definitely would love for you to play a few of the video clips. Also invite people to actually watch the entire video. So Kevin's legal team put together what we call a clemency video. And this video specifically is to go to the governor of our state to plead for him to give Kevin clemency and for mercy. In our state, we don't necessarily know if that's going to work, but the video is definitely helpful to amplify Kevin's story. So we just got some clips of it, some 30 seconds, some 2 or 3 minutes, but I definitely would love for you to play those periodically through the morning. But so I think, when we're talking about incarceration, when we're talking about the death penalty, when we're talking about these things that, our colonizers have set up for us over the years, we really need to break down those cycles and what happened from the beginning, because we always see what a person did to get there, right? Kevin did kill a policeman. He's never denied that. He's remorseful for what he did. 17 years later, he has some perspective. He's done some healing on himself. And of course, he regrets his actions. But, there were so many things that led up to that. And those are the things that we as a community even, right, never really address. We just look at the harm someone has done, but we're not talking about those things that led up to how that person got there and how they were failed by literally everyone, around them, family, friends, teachers, systems, all of that. So that's kind of what I wanted, wanted to start at this morning.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And welcome Diallo to the show this morning. By the way, everybody, in the show description already are all the links to everything. So you are now as equally prepared as any of us to help spread the word on this issue. In this case, you have all the information, and we invite you to really do. And I really appreciate how Kalanji put it. Invite others that with platforms and microphones and video cameras to demonstrate the value, really the only value of this work, and lend their voice to this. So I said all that I had to say there, ML, and all I am finding, of course, is the full video, not any of the specific clips that I'm sure you did send. So whenever you're ready, I can pull that up. We can go to any point of it that you like. And I do encourage people to watch the entire video. It puts Kevin's story into context. And I know many of us will recognize personally or by extension all kinds of comparisons and similarities when we hear the background. When you talk about those dominoes. So maybe we could start with you, maybe laying some of that out, ML. What were, or Dawn, if you wanted to jump in, please say, do. But what were some of those dominoes? So you've already told us what Kevin has been charged with, convicted of, what he doesn't deny.
Yeah.
What led up to that? How did we get there?
Right. So we got there from a community that was disinvested, that was ignored. Diallo likes to call that benign neglect. We got there from a community, it's called Meacham Park. So background I'm in St. Louis, which is Ferguson. Ferguson is a suburb of where I live. And we know the Mike Brown situation, and they did an investigation about the city of Ferguson and how it targeted Black people, etc. And so I talk about Meacham Park as a smaller version of Ferguson. Ferguson is actually a pretty big suburb. It has actually a mixture of people. Meacham Park is probably 5 or 6 blocks right now, and it's basically full of Black folks, right? And it's a little better now, but at that time it was a very poor community. It was in a good spot. So the surrounding white communities came in, took a lot of the land. Right now it's a Walmart and like a Target, I think, on that part of Meacham Park where people were basically had to move. And so the community was disinvested and ignored other than the police, right? There was a white community who had a police force, and over years, these police targeted this community. So Kevin's, dad, his uncles, everyone in that community had this experience with the police, which led up to later them not trusting the police, and in a situation that happened where Kevin killed the police officer. But specifically with Kevin, in addition to that community dynamic, he was born to a mother, like a lot of, we talk about the 80s as the crack era, right? So his mother was, deeply on drugs, and his father was in prison. At the age of 16 months old, Kevin's dad went to prison to do a 12-year stint. And with a mother on drugs and a father incarcerated for a couple of years, not a lot of people paid attention to the situation. So Kevin and his older brother were basically living in like this shack with his mother and the people she do drugs with, and basically just suffering. He was 3 or 4 years old, and he talks about like they were so hungry eating roaches off the floor. He talks about at one point he and his brother, they saw a mouse and they wanted to catch it, right? But of course they were 3 or 4, they weren't fast enough. But just the suffering that he suffered in his early life, and honestly, it went unnoticed for several years until the state stepped in. Now we know when the state step in, that ain't a good thing, right? That's not when they come in, it's hardly ever a good situation. So the state stepped in when Kevin was about 4 and put him in the foster care system. He lived with an aunt for several years who at first was okay, but she became abusive because she got into a divorce with her husband. So she became abusive. Later on, Kevin went to many other foster homes, group homes. He basically spent his childhood in these unstable, abusive, neglectful situations. I've actually met a social worker who worked at one of these group homes, and she talks about the abuse there and how later they actually shut down a group home because there was so much abuse. So when we talk about our communities and our families, these things set us up for failure later on. And that was really Kevin's experience, because when you're a little kid like that, what kind of mental health are you going to have? What kind of reasoning skills are you going to develop, right? How are you going to process what's going on? And Kevin internalized it. He blamed himself. Probably, I think he said at 13, he tried to commit suicide. So he just spiraled into this state of mental illness and depression because he basically had no one that was, there for him. So I kind of wanted to talk about that. I know that we talk a lot about, the ACEs, right? And we talk about how all those things lead up to these problems. And I see it every day in my work. And that's one reason I get so upset with our people in this child discipline that we're not asked to discipline anybody, but it's abuse. And when you hit and when you scream and yell at kids, it's abuse. And I was actually talking recently about that. I've heard in my life so many people say, well, I'm gonna hit my kids or beat my kids so the police don't have to, or so they won't go to jail. I know, and I know Don knows as well, I know literally hundreds of people in prison and have been to prison, right? I work with people incarcerated every day across the country. I don't know one Negro in prison that wasn't beaten. So you cannot tell me that hitting kids or being abusive or having this corporal punishment stops them from interacting with the police, the courts, or the prisons, because every Negro in a prison cell today was abused. And so that's kind of where it starts. And it's like, we have to take a good look at what we do to our children. We set these things up because had Kevin had better reasoning skills and decision-making skills, it wasn't traumatized in that moment, it's very likely he wouldn't have pulled the trigger and killed a policeman. But, those things led up to that. So I did put in.
Yeah, I got the link, and I got the. Okay, so if you have a particular clip you want me to play, let me know, and I'll pull it up.
There's one called KJ Abuse 02, I think. It's but any of those that say abuse, I try to label them, kind of with the subject matter.
Yeah, I got you. Perfect. You did a great job, and I'm the one holding you up, so I apologize. Fine. So here we go. I got you right here. And we can check this one out real quick.
Growing up, we had a hard childhood. My mother, falling victim to crack cocaine. Yeah, she just lost focus of what, being left alone in the house, nothing to eat, maybe days at a time,
We get so hungry, got a lot of roaches and stuff. Like on occasion, like when it was too bad, we tried to get the roaches eaten.
You know, life was not good to him, and he had a shitty home life. The only time I was confident that he was probably eating correctly was at school. I'd probably have known Kevin most of his life, at least since he was 5, when he used to come around to the stadium on game days and bug me for food.
Mm-hmm. We'll talk about that last a little further. Geechee had some issues with his coach, and I imagine some others will too. But we'll talk about him. But yeah, so that was those struggles that Kevin went through. And I'll just bring Dawn in this. And Diallo, you missed it. Dawn is actually from Kansas City. So I specifically made sure she came so you can, feel at home, right? I can't remember. You always say where you grew up, but I don't remember the name of the projects.
East Hills Village. East Hills Village, 75th Road, Village Boys.
Oh, boy.
Yes. Northeast here, Diallo. Good to see you. Yes. Can y'all hear me okay?
Okay, Northeast. Yes. All right, yeah.
Good.
So
Southeast on the side.
Is one of those people. Okay. Dawn is one of those people in her community in Kansas City that, has taken on that mantle of doing these things for the children, the young people, and, single parents and that sort of thing. Because she sees, with doing the bail work, she sees how these issues of abuse and neglect are affecting our children. So I definitely wanted to bring her in and kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yes, thank you for that, Michelle. And again, thank you for the space and everybody being here. And, and first of all, thank you for doing this really important work, Michelle. When I think about the system as a whole, there's so much I could say. But when I think about KJ, there's so much about his story that's nuanced, right? And there's so much about his life and his lived experiences that took him step by step where he is now. And we know that is exactly what is supposed to happen for our folks, right? We are not really supposed to be able to exist outside of some form of bondage in this particular climate. So there are all the nuances about KJ's story that are super, super powerful. And all of the lives that are going to be impacted and have been impacted by his incarceration and his ongoing confinement to a cage. And the fact that the state thinks that they need to kill him is evidence of its own failure to do its own job that it says that it can do, which is to rehabilitate people by confining them to cages. And I don't know anywhere else you can fuck up your job so regularly as you can at the state, but I digress. So there's really two powerful things here for me with KJ's story. There's KJ's story, and then there's the story that what happened in Meacham Park, and all of that is super powerful on its own. And then the other thing for me that's super powerful is all the other KJs and all of the other Meacham Parks that exist out here, and all of the other lives that are being impacted by a state's willingness to cage bodies and to kill them because it does not provide the access to resources that people need to just basically meet their own material needs. So I know that's a mouthful. I will stop there. But I think that we really have a lot to learn here, not just from KJ, but from everybody else like KJ, that we fail by not learning how to care for one another in a powerful and radical way.
Right on. Thank you for that. Anybody want to jump in? Geechee, Diallo, ML, you want to come back? Any follow up to that? Do we want to get to the issues with the coach or anything?
Yeah.
Because he figures somewhat prominently in that video, as do some of the others who were involved in KJ's upbringing and his education, particularly going back to kindergarten. I believe had one of his teachers there as well in the video. But any or another clip maybe if you want to let me know. Anybody jump on in or tell me what you want to do.
Why don't you play the clip that says KJ? I think it says KJ Coach 01 or 02. I'm sorry, I can't remember. and
No,
then
it's
we'll
cool. I'll
let
find it. Mm-hmm.
and we'll let Geechee go off because Geechee he saw that video the first time and he was hot. He was hot.
Okay, give me a second here. You said it should say KJ coach,
Yeah.
testimony, dead graphics, dead. Yes. All right, hold on one second here. Pull that bad boy up.
Ability to remember mostly about Kevin football wise was just his ability to naturally just bowl really strong. But most importantly, Kevin was so intelligent that I told Kevin something once. You know, he probably was already 3 or 4 pages down the road because he was so smart about the game and so easily coachable. Probably one of the top 5 individual players I've ever coached just because of his ability to run hit. You know, I had a kid that was a 10-year pro in the NFL. So I had some really great players, but just overall ability and understanding the game. You know, Kevin so easily could have been a coach. Very team oriented. His teammates loved him. Never was critical of his teammates. Always positive. And he was my play caller, so I would signal on the plays, and Kevin would call it to the defense. And he would line up, and wherever the ball went, I don't care how it went there, whether it was a counter action or reverse, straight on, he was where the ball was. I know that Kevin was happiest when he was playing football and when he was at school.
So we didn't include the part about getting your bell rung in that clip, but the coach talks about getting your bell rung, which now we know that means a concussion and CTE. And so Kevin, his nickname, we all have nicknames, was Rockhead in school. Kevin has a big forehead, like many of us, like I do, because hiding it a little bit. But he would hit people in football with his head, and that's kind of how he would knock them out, and he would knock himself out. So he had several concussions in high school and several head injuries. But of course, this coach used him, right, to, and he was a great football player. He was actually a very good football player. And so, you know, he was like, oh, he got his bell rung all the time. And it's like, you know, that was very exploitive. So I kind of wanted Geechee to jump in and kind of talk about.
Hey, Geechee, before you do, I want to put a little more battery in your back. I think ML put a few in there. I think there's a couple more spaces. I'd like to get a couple more in there if I can, because during the video, to your point, ML, not only does the coach say that, now I didn't play football, but I think I understand the game and how it's supposed to be taught. And Geechee, you could check me on this. The coach actually says we taught him and our players to hit with your head. That's not coaching. See what you hit. It's supposed to be the mantra to keep your head up so you're not leading with your head and get your shit. But anyway, so that was just one more. And then, of course, as he said in there, he calls him a bull. And I always hear, when I hear white men refer to black men as bulls, I feel a kind of way. But Geechee, go ahead, man. I just wanted to get that one more battery in there.
So I think it was last week I laid some of it out when we was talking about this, and we was talking about CTE. And I think one of the things that is important. So I played football from the time I can remember. I was a little kid through high school, through college. It paid for my scholarship. And what I have learned, right? We talked about this concept of, you just said bull, and we know Two Black wrote this article about Black rage, and what you see is these coaches are normally exploiting the Black rage. I know I got to stop calling people idiots, but I feel like whenever this dude said he came to me bugging for food, like that shit, it still bothered me, right? And then all of a sudden he's saying that he was at his happiest place on the field. His life, I mean, I think he even said his life was fucked up or something, whatever he said. And so one of the things I do know about football is if your coach love you that much, you're going to put you in different spaces where you're going to have money, resources, college scholarships, or whatever, right? If you really the top 5 or 10, whatever the hell he's saying, if Kevin is that dude like that, I promise you, your white coach gonna put you in different spaces and put you in different rooms. Damn grades gonna be high as hell. There's a whole lot of stuff gonna happen to you if you really his favorite. But anyway, so talking about this ball hawk, this bell rung shit. Again, I'm older than Kevin, and even when I was a little kid, they, like you said, they told you to see what you hit with the shoulder pad, and see your head through them. And your head is supposed to be where the ball is at. So if the ball is here, you see through it, you hit with your shoulders. So telling this dude to hit with his head in general is
bad coaching.
I mean, honestly, it almost sounds like I'm gonna use you, and then after you finish, your whole life gonna be fucked up to where you just gonna go off somewhere. And maybe if something like this happened, I might come on the camera and talk about how good you are and how much I help contribute to this mental state. So I mean, there's a whole lot of other things he said, like when he says like, "Oh, I've never thought that he would be this violent. I didn't think that was him." I mean, football is a violent ass sport, and I know there's no more convenient or smart way to be violent, but again, one of the tackling things is like, yeah, this is a violent sport, but to protect yourself, this is how you're supposed to hit. But you actually telling him to do the opposite. So not only if he's engaging in violence on the football field, what you're doing to his brain is not going to help him be reasoning well. So I just think, when we talk about the system that's victimizing us, and then we talk about the the conditions that it put our people in to have issues with loving each other, but this person in particular, and I'm not making this all about the coach, but this person in particular, who's supposed to be protecting him from the system and being some kind of refuge, is actually exploiting him just like the system. And now, granted, and then we have to have this story to tell. We have to kind of adjust it. We talked about this before, but now we have to be like, well, his family life is messed up, and it's kind of like blaming it all on his family. It's not, the state is not being kind of held up as the result, and then also the people around him that's benefiting from him is not as well. So it's just kind of another case of like everybody is benefiting off this black life until it's expired, and that's just very frustrating for me. So I think that's kind of where I want to go in terms of that. But yeah, I just see everybody benefiting off his life. Even some of the teachers in that video, I see everybody benefiting off of his life, and they had multiple times to intercede and actually help him in his family.
So one of them actually says something like that, and Dawn, ML, I'd like to hear your thoughts on all of that, but one of the white men, I forgot which role he played, not the coach, but there was another white man who was the assistant principal. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
When he says, so first going even back to what the coach had said, he bugged me for food, and then there seems to be no follow-up for that. Like, well, what does it mean if a child is bugging you to get food? But then this other assistant principal says at one point, while he's saying things in defense of Kevin, he does make clear to point out that the officer Kevin killed was not responsible for the death of Kevin's brother. So could we talk about the again, the incident itself, that and why I thought it would, I just felt that stood out to me. Anyway, so yeah.
If I could, and ML can speak, I think, a little more to the exact details leading up to the incident that KJ, and I can speak to some of it, but I just kind of wanted to back up a little bit, even to some of Geechi's points. And like, yes, everything we've seen from all of these, white saviors speaks to like the exploitative nature of how they treat Black bodies at every step, right? And then not to mention, they're literally saying, I see a child starving in front of me on a regular basis, and I do next to nothing to do anything about it, right? And we're not talking about the criminal nature of that. We're not talking about how violent that act is, right? And so when we speak about even football as a sport, as a violent sport, I just want us to actually kind of sit with that for a moment, because language matters. Language is important. Depriving food is an act of violence as well, right? Being excessively hungry for extended periods of time is not going to put you in the best frame of mind in terms of decision making. So there's a lot of ways that we have to start to reframe how we think about violence. Withdrawing support from schools and education will also like create systems of violence or acts of violence within our community, and then cause folks to have to create other points of access to eat, house themselves, clothe themselves. And KJ's situation is no different. It does not matter whether or not the very officer at issue was the person that led to the death of his loved one. That officer and all like them who are going to continue to advocate for the people that allowed KJ's brother to die because they were more concerned with criminalizing him than saving another Black body, that they cannot actually speak to the fact that they are all each part of the system that is allowing KJ and his family to die one by one by one. So I'll stop there.
Mel, did you want to jump in?
Yeah. Thank you, Don. We are, dispensable. We are, trash thrown away. I will go ahead and move on to the actual day, the actual situation. So we talk about, Kevin's life, head injuries, the abuse, his mental illnesses, and there was a couple of bright spots in his life. One was his brother. So Kevin's mom had a little boy 7 years after he was born, and they called him Bam Bam. We all have nicknames in our family. His name was Joseph, but they called him Bam Bam. And he was born sickly because his mother was on drugs and he had some health issues. And so he had a heart defect, which he had surgery and some other things. And Kevin took his little brother under his wing because he felt the same, their mother had did similar things to them in their life. And he was just very close to his little brother. Many of us, we have older siblings, become almost parents to our younger siblings. So that was the situation with Kevin and Bam Bam. He was so close to his brother. He had several other siblings, but he was the closest to his little brother. And on July the 5th of 2005, Kevin's little brother had a medical emergency. He had a seizure. And because he was sickly, basically the neighborhood knew that, these things happened. And so when the seizure happened, the grandmother screamed and the police were on the block because they were looking at Kevin or for Kevin. I believe he was on probation, and I believe it was like unlawful gun possession or something. He had some minor situation in the past. So they were on the block anyway. So when the grandmother screamed, they ran to the house to see what was going on, and Bam Bam was seizing. Now, normally, emergency, they would make sure to get him to the hospital quickly, to get him help, right? They basically were apathetic to the situation. They did get an ambulance. They did get, EMT on scene, but they were also still looking for Kevin. They were kind of walking through the house. Kevin was next door at another home looking through the window, which is how he saw all this. So they were basically walking through the house, kind of looking around, and Kevin thought, why aren't you all helping my brother? You still walking around the house, supposedly looking for him. And the mother, Kevin's mother, was there, and the police wouldn't let her in. They were just being very policey, right? I mean, we kind of know what that is. They were just being who they are. And they eventually got Bam Bam to the hospital about 18 minutes later.
And I'm sorry, ML, to cut you off, but Kevin in the video says that he saw some sort of tussle or altercation between his mother and the kid, and he pushes his mother. And then he says on multiple occasions the police officers step over his brother and his mother, like totally not interested in protection or saving. So like it was I just didn't want to leave out the aggression from the story. And I want, anyway, so go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. You are correct. Yes. The mother was trying, of course, when your child is, having a medical emergency, even though we know she was on drugs and there was something going on, of course, these were her babies. These were still her children. And so, the police were trying to keep her out. Now, at that moment, the paramedics were there, but still, they were not taking him out the house, getting him help. So the family was upset, and that policeman that was pushing the mother and doing this is the one that Kevin eventually killed later on. So approximately 18 minutes later, they got Bam Bam to the hospital, and he did die. He did pass away. So Kevin, in his mental state from, the football injuries, the abuse he suffered, just everything in his life, it just crashed in that moment. And he lost the one person who, he was really tasked with, supporting and helping and protecting. And a few hours later, the policeman was in the neighborhood, because that's what they do. They were back in the neighborhood, apparently because of fireworks. And here you're not supposed to fire fireworks at 4th of July, but people do it. And the policeman was back in the neighborhood, and Kevin saw him, and he walked up to the police car and screamed, "You killed my brother," right? And he shot him. Now, technically, no, the police did not kill his little brother, right? I mean, the medical condition did. However, the way that they treated the family and the way that they were not, being urgent in helping the little brother, it possibly did contribute, because he could have survived. We don't know, had he been to the hospital after 5 minutes and not 18. And so that was Kevin's mindset. Like, basically, you contributed in killing my brother. And I don't know many 19-year-olds can watch the police basically step over their 12-year-old brother and, treat them horribly and treat your mother horribly and not feel like you want to do something, right? And so that was that day, that event that basically made everything crash and caused Kevin to shoot and kill the policeman. And so that's why he's on death row. And also, our prosecutor, we have a prosecutor here that is a horrible person. He's not here anymore, but this is the same prosecutor that wouldn't prosecute Darren Wilson for killing Mike Brown Jr. So his name was McCullough. And he made sure to get Kevin a death sentence. The first trial ended in a mistrial because the jury was mixed and they heard a lot of those mitigating situations. But the second trial, the prosecutor did everything he could to get all of that mitigating evidence out. And guess what else he did? Of course, got an all-white jury. Because when you have an all-white jury, you're going to get a black man, whatever sentence, with a death sentence, life in prison, whatever you're looking for, an all-white jury is going to do that for you. And so that's what happened to Kevin.
And like Geechee shared with us this morning, to your point, apparently to an all-white jury, one white officer killed by a black man is worse than however many children are killed by a high school white shooter. So in other words, the Parkland shooter gets life. Kevin is sentenced to death for only killing one, but that one is a police officer and white, and of course Kevin is black, and that those are the real mitigating circumstances. Anyway, so I'm glad you laid all that out. It just rung out to me to hear the assistant principal have to include that the officer was not particularly guilty of the death of his son, because that line, I think, is what is really all that the jury has to hear to justify their conclusion. It's that kind of line that allows for people to say, to justify their desire to punish someone for killing a cop in their community, particularly a black person for killing a cop in their community, because that is what mitigates all of the context you all are laying out this morning. Well, it doesn't matter that the whole society collapsed on this young man. That one officer did not do what was the triggering event for Kevin. And that's I think all that they would have to hear to say, oh yeah, that's why he got to die. We can't have that.
I actually think that was the now that you're saying it, it was the ex-cop. It was a older white man who was an ex-cop.
He retired. Yeah.
He was like, "Oh, Kevin was a good kid."
Oh, that's who.
That's who said that part. I thought you was talking about something else. The vice principal, he said something else, but the white older cop who knew Kevin was the one who said, Kevin thought this man killed his brother, and that didn't happen. That's not how it happened. And then, that was I guess he was a neighborhood cop. I know we got all these officer-friendly type programs, and maybe he was one of those kind of people.
Yeah.
Oh wow! I didn't even realize that's who was in the videos.
Yeah, he's a retired. He was actually a retired juvenile officer of that community, and he spoke about, because in the trial, the prosecutor tried to say Kevin was a horrible kid and he was a thug and he, did all this. And that cop spoke about he never had any interaction really with Kevin,
Right.
other than anything good. He never like arrested him for things of that nature. But he also said the police were not culpable because number one, the technically they did not kill Bam Bam, right? But also they were there to help, right? They were there to render aid and they were trying. But that's not what the family saw. Even, that's another perspective. In that moment, his mother, like you said, was pushed by the officer out the door. She was screaming, she was crying, she wanted to get help for her son. Kevin saw the police stepping over his brother's body through the window. He couldn't see his brother's body on the floor, but the area how the house is laid, the police kept stepping over him and going through the house, looking for something, which again, they thought it was Kevin. So yeah, the police are going to have their perspective, right? It's whatever. They always have a different perspective, which is anytime they say anything, I don't, they could say the sky blue and I'm not necessarily going to believe it. But that officer did say that, but he also did talk about the fact that Kevin was not a troubling kid. He was not, running around the neighborhood, robbing people or doing anything of that. He was actually a good kid and he wasn't in a lot of trouble.
I think if I could, like to jump in on this piece, because I want to be straight up. Like, violence and harm are real, and what happened is not okay, right? Lives were lost, and but some very valid points have been raised. Like, why is this particular person's life more important than all the kids at the Parkland shooting, right? And the death penalty itself, like every other part of the criminal justice system, is inherently racist. And when there's an alleged murder where there's a Black perpetrator and a white victim, a person is more likely going to get the death penalty than when there is a different set of racial dynamics involved in that situation. So there's that, and we just have to name that in this particular moment and in Kevin's case. And then there's also the case that that's not the only life that was lost. And the system itself does not work. Not only will it not serve us, it doesn't serve survivors. It doesn't serve community. It does not keep us safer. It does not solve for crime. And so we also have to really get to the root of the problem, is that this shit does not work in any way. And where will the accountability be for Bam Bam? Where is that coming from? And so 2 lives have already been lost because of this incident, potentially a third if the state has its way with KJ, right? And so where will the accountability be there? Because if murder is inherently wrong, then why would we do to KJ what we say is wrong for him to have done in the first place? And so we really have to take a step back and stop participating in this thing to the best of our ability that does not serve us, and start seeking alternative ways for accountability, because nobody's going to be safer. Not only will KJ not, and the community that is losing him, but community at large will not be safer if we lose KJ. Community at large will hurt, though. Families will lose loved ones if we lose KJ. KJ is someone's father, someone's grandfather, brother, uncle. He is a person, and he deserves to be here.
So is that actually, go ahead, Geechee, go ahead.
No, I think one of the, and I know sometimes the language is different, but when we talk about a person, again, from out of the womb to that very moment, the state was attacking him via his mama, via his community. And I think I was seeing some stuff about how Meacham Park and what is it, Kirkwood or whatever, like they have this ill relationship. And I think when you see somebody who is responding to the violence that they're receiving, I mean, it's I don't know. I don't know if we want to talk about it. I remember Daruba was talking about how we shouldn't be narrating this whole innocent thing or this whatever, as if Assata Shakur wasn't trained to shoot in a type of way, right? Just as well as KJ wasn't put in position to protect his family the best way he knew how to. And so, I don't know. I think, the goal is to obviously get him out of the hands of the state to kill him. But just in language in general, I'm wondering why we can't, when we get behind this, we can't look at it as like, I mean, he's the warrior that a lot of us probably wouldn't be or can't be, and he should be protected, and he should be able to, be in his child's life and his grandchild's life, because again, like the state created that person and created that response.
So that's why the way I've always interpreted Daruba's argument and what I like about it is that to keep things compartmentalized, as I would, ML and Dawn and others working specifically on this case have to focus on what is exactly needed to get KJ off of death row and maybe one day out. The movement, broadly speaking, has to determine how to interpret KJ's actions and perform an analysis of it. And the two don't necessarily have to overlap and maybe shouldn't overlap. I don't think it's logical to expect that someone could go into the court and argue in defense of the military action of a colonized community, blah, 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 and expect KJ to be rewarded for that. Anyway, but I do think that and again, I encourage people to look at the whole video that is linked in the show description to get that full context and really maybe inspire us to try to address that as we move forward. Sorry, ML, you wanted to jump in. Go ahead.
Yeah, I did want to talk about that aspect. So there are two parts to this situation. There is the court proceedings. Kevin has a legal team of several attorneys and mitigators, and actually the people that put together the video, his legal team hired them. So that part is ongoing. They're filing in the state courts, the federal courts. They're also dealing directly with the governor's office and trying to get some movement there, which is great, and we support them. My org has been meeting with Kevin's legal team since months before he actually got an execution date. So, and that's kind of the work that we do. We don't just come in when there is a date. My organization handles death penalty overall from the legislation. We're actually trying to get the statute repealed in our state, which is going to take some work, but dealing with the courts and attorneys and that whole thing. And so that's definitely something that they're doing. And that other side is the forward-facing community side, the advocacy, the education. I've met so many people in my own state when I've told them that I start off every conversation, Missouri is an executing state. Currently, we kill people in this state. And they look at me like I lost my damn mind. And they're like, oh, we don't see that on TV. No, because the only time the TV mentions it, the news, is literally the day of an execution. They'll say this person is about to get killed in a couple hours, but it's not something that is covered, so people don't know. So that's one thing that I do, and I am intentional about putting that out there. And language is important because we normally in this movement, and this is a movement. It's small, but it is a movement. We traditionally been trying to be like more nice with the language, and so. For instance, saying this person is scheduled to be executed on this date, or this person is facing execution on this date. And so a few weeks ago, I said, you know what, I'm done, right? I'm done with the niceties. If I'm going to be in a space, I'm going to shake shit up. And if not, I ain't going to be there. I can go back, I can lay down or whatever. And so I said to my director, I said, you know what, they're going to kill Kevin. Let's just keep it real, right? They're going to execute, they're going to kill Kevin on November 29th. Now, if that doesn't happen, great. But I'm coming to this from that perspective because I need to get people activated. I need to get people in a position where they're outraged by what's going on, and actually putting it out there forcefully, talking of what it is. These, this is what is going on. This state murders. This is a regurgitation of state lynching, and this is what's happening with Kevin and other people as well. Kevin, not the only one. But, so I'm really trying to be intentional with that language and trying to let people know that this is what's going on and we need to be outraged. I was talking to a group of people last night and saying how, we are killing Kevin, right? We, the state. And they were like, it's not us. I said, well, when you pay taxes, right? Whatever the government does, they do it in your name. Unless you got your ass in the Capitol screaming not to do something. They do it in all our name. I pay taxes, a couple dollars, but I do. So I think that, really explaining to people how this is urgent, this is now, and we need to, come at it with that perspective. That's why I'm at, and I do talk to Kevin about it as well. I'm a little glitchy, my apologies.
It's all good.
And, I talked to him about it too. And that's why I'm also doing a countdown. I also started this countdown from day 60. So if you go on our page, MADPMO, we're on day 46. So in 46 days, Kevin Johnson will be murdered by the state of Missouri. And so, I did that because I need to let people know that this is not something that is, may happen right now. This is happening. And I want the outrage of when we saw the cops knee on George Floyd's neck. It's not a knee, it's a needle, but it's the same thing, right? It's literally the same. We don't see executions, but if we actually visualized it and saw it, it's horrible. I read reports about, because, the witnesses, they closed the curtain, but the people inside of the chamber, they've also written their accounts. And I read their accounts, and it is a horrible way to die. It's not, they say it's humane. No, it ain't. They literally cut people open to get a vein to inject these chemicals into their body. And so it's a horrible way to die. And I want to get that type of outrage and that type of feeling behind it to where we get to a place where we're going to be as loud and vocal about this as we are about any other state murder. And, and it may not happen. This may not stop. Kevin actually talked about it in the video. This may happen to him, and he got to deal with the consequences. But we're not going to be quiet about it. And that's what I told him. I say, I'm not going to be quiet about the fact that they're killing you. And so many other people, like the Parkland shooter and other people, are not facing the same thing. And so this death penalty is arbitrary and it's horrible. And in this moment, I'm definitely going to, get to that place of trying to endear people to their outrage. And that's why I appreciate Kalonji, because Kalonji actually worked on the Troy Davis campaign and execution over 11 years ago. And we just passed the anniversary of Troy Davis's state murder. And so Kalonji was involved in that. And I definitely appreciate his presence and, understanding that we need to get to that place again where we're outraged about what's going on. But I did want
that's why I just say this. That's why we continue to work with Kalonji and put up with his ass, because he does a lot of good stuff out here. You know what I mean? It's like he balances it out. You know what I mean? But anyway,
so I wanted to I guess give something a context of something, and then see if we can dialogue around that in terms of making sure that people are aware and outraged. And then, even in light with Kalonji, some things that we talked about in terms of people we're connected to. So I think I saw Kalonji, T.I. shared Kalonji's response to him and Charleston White stuff, right? And we know T.I. has this draw, and Kalonji, when they interact, it's almost like a tactical relationship in terms of not calling him out on things. And I told y'all how I have a relationship with Charlemagne that wasn't so tactical. But I'm curious how we do we need to remain tactical with them? So when something like this happened, and most people won't respond to it. So for instance, ML was on the show before. We mentioned this a couple times. I mentioned this a couple times, maybe for the last 3 weeks. And I know, and we don't have a large following, right? So is it necessary to not necessarily challenge and always call out your friends who happen to be famous or celebrities, so that when something like this happened, you could be like, hey, I need you to, say this or look at this. And then they share it and everybody else kind of come on, and then you'll see this wave of people ready to support. So, I guess I wonder how we look at things like that. We won't really talk about this until a celebrity or somebody else says something, or we have the chance for a celebrity to say something, and all of a sudden everybody's on it now. But we could be screaming about this shit for 33 months and nobody will listen until somebody else kind of make the call. So I wonder how you all feel about that in terms of like, you know, ML, Don doing the work. We're trying to get people, you know, in tune to it, but you can't be emotionally connected to it without some kind of catapult. Go ahead, Diallo.
Well, I think the problem with bringing a celebrity, generally when you look at a celebrity take on a cause, the celebrity usually takes on a cause to promote their own brand and elevate their own status, as opposed to really addressing the issue or the cause that they've attached themselves to. So I think the attention that a celebrity can bring to your cause is kind of a double-edged sword. It, it reminds me of Jay-Z and Beyonce jumping into the Ferguson, Missouri protest and paying bail for those protesters. And Jay-Z and Beyonce got a lot of cachet from paying bail. But after, when those same people who were bailing out means you're just out pending trial. And when those trials came down and those heavy penalties were leveled against those people, Jay-Z and Beyonce were nowhere to be found. But they still bask in the sunlight to this day. When I level criticisms against, you know, Jay-Z for whatever reason, people bring that up, even though the only people that truly profited in the long term from that public relations scheme was the Rockefeller brand and Ivy Park brand and all that. So I know that it's a quick and cheap way to get the word out about something. But, you know, if you look at it in the long term, you even go back decades, Russell Simmons and the Rockefeller drug laws, you know, they literally have this term called cause celeb, like the hottest. I mean, Darfur, remember every celebrity was screaming Darfur, you know, a few years ago. So I always get a little itchy when a celebrity, you know, takes on or attaches themselves to the cause, because a lot of times they bring attention, but most of that attention comes with the celebrity and leaves with the celebrity. So they have as much power to drain all the energy out. So I kind of think that the grassroots is really the only way, you know, to go. But that's just my observation.
I mean, and they're better paid and better platformed, but celebrities really don't have. I mean, with all due respect to our criticism of them, I think Diallo is right. They don't have the power to do what I think a lot of us think that they have. And if they attempted to do what we invite them to do, they would lose their position and not be celebrities anymore. So, I mean, it's kind of a, you know, but anyway, Dawn, ML, you all want to?
I'll add this. First, I was just looking in the chat. I want to clarify something. We are not talking about Kevin Rashid Johnson. That is another person.
Oh, right.
He's in Virginia, if I'm not mistaken, prison, and he does not have a death sentence. We are not talking about Kevin. I just want to clarify that because I was in the chat. This is Kevin
thank you for that. No, I appreciate that. And also because I also support Kevin Rashid Johnson as well, but two separate cases. He's not on death row. He's in Virginia. I believe if he might have just been moved again. I mean, they're messing with him. He needs support as well, but we're talking about a different Kevin Johnson, a different case, but a similar problem, if not the same underlying problem. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's definitely all similar. But as far as celebrity, you know, I definitely think that they're problematic, right? But I can't even count how many times I talk to people and they say to me, go talk to Kim Kardashian. You got Kim K on the case? And I can't curse.
Like you could just call her too, right?
Thank you.
Like,
you know,
and she's like, oh, Michelle, what's up?
But it's just like, I want to be like, listen, you know, and you know, there are times where she does say stuff about cases or whatever, and whatever. I don't care about the people, but it's just like, even our people, that's our mindset, right? I mean, the people I'm talking about that tell me this, I'm talking about rich folks, I'm talking about niggas. We're like, oh, you know, have you gotten Kim K on it? And I'm like, I want you on it, right? And so it's just like, if we had a mobilized, organized movement around death penalty, around all of our issues, we can make enough noise collectively to where we don't need those people. But yeah, right now, today, presently, they do help. They help get the word out. I mean, not necessarily, they're not going to help stop Kevin's murder. But these people do have connections to other people in places of power. One instance, last year, there was a man on death row in Oklahoma, Julius Jones. And Julius is actually innocent. And they, had a huge campaign behind him. And what actually made the governor react was the huge campaign got some conservative, rich white folks, their interest peaked, and they know the governor. And so these people are actually the people that put the call into the governor and asked the governor to, have this hearing and, take him off of death row. And actually they're now fighting for his innocence because he is innocent. But that was that, effect of that huge public outpouring. They had like NBA players. I think Oklahoma has an NBA team. So they had NBA players and other people talking. And the word did get back to these rich conservative people who knew Governor Stitt. So that's the sort of thing that happens. And guess what? Those people, they're not out front. They're now loud. I know about it because of the movement. But but people like Kim Kardashian, if they do help, or Jay-Z, or these people, they have to get their props behind. They got to let you know. They gotta get on Twitter and IG and let you know, hey, I bail people out of jail. And even in bailing people out of jail in St. Louis, there's a man today named Joshua Williams. He was a Ferguson protester that got 8 years for arson. Right now, Josh is in prison, and he calls me for help, and I help him when I can. But even the little stuff that they did do, it's still not. It's not lasting. It's not helpful. Right. There are two, actually, Josh is one or two. There are two people in prison today because of Ferguson protests in 2014. Right. And hopefully Josh will be home shortly. But
hey, whenever you have time and want to come back to talk about that and that all of those issues, let me know. We can add to that as well. And speaking of additions, joining us now, and I'm sure I'm going to need to be checked on this, is Joya Aaron Thompson, the National Policy Strategist for the Southern Center for Human Rights. Please correct me if I've mispronounced your name, and welcome to the program. Good morning.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. It feels good to be with all these melanated people this morning. That was really good. Joya Aaron Thornton. I am the National Policy Strategist at the Southern Center for Human Rights here in Atlanta, Georgia. So it feels good to be with you all and talking about a cause that is so near and dear to me and that more Black people need to engage with.
So did I mispronounce your last name? I'm getting checked in the chat too. I didn't say Thornton. Sorry about that, everybody. My apologies.
That's okay. That's okay.
I don't know what I said.
You're close. You're really
struggling this morning. I'm struggling.
Thank you, Dr. Ball. So Jordan,
please call me Jared. Please call me Jared.
Well, you know why I don't call you Jared? No, my son's name is Jared. So I feel so a lot of times I'll be feeling some type of way towards him. So I like to call you Dr. Ball. No, yeah. Look, I don't know, but
okay, as you wish.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so Dawn may have to jump off, so I definitely want to thank her. If she doesn't, that's fine. But just in case she does, I did want to kind of talk about Joya. So, death penalty is a movement. It's a space. There are about a couple thousand people on death row nationally, and so we do, come together as an organization, as organizations. We collaborate. We have a national strategy that we try to follow, but also within a death penalty movement, because it was originally technically started as the organizations from religious older white people. So as Black faces got into the movement, we kind of had to say, hey, let's get together. So we have something called Leaders of Color, LOC, and all of the Black and brown folks, we get together monthly. We vent, we talk about our own internal strategies and how we're going to amplify our people. So Joya is very involved in that national strategy and supporting our state work. And she's very involved in the Leaders of Color. So I just kind of wanted to give that perspective on her role. So thank you, sis, for joining us. I love you to death.
No problem.
And Dawn, I don't know if you do have to jump off. Thank you for joining us, and you're welcome back anytime for this and related issues that you're working on. And if you don't have to jump, then please continue to hang out.
Awesome. No, thank you. I am going to pivot. Joya, pleasure to see you again. Everyone, thank you for the space. And please, 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 please sign the petition if you haven't already. Clemency for KJ. We need everyone's support. His life matters. And thank you all for this conversation. Much love.
Right on. Thank you very much. Take care of yourself. Appreciate you. So I don't know. Do we want to pick up somewhere in particular, Joya? Do you want to, lay out maybe your perspective on this and what your work is related to KJ and or anything else in particular?
Sure. First of all, I just want to celebrate ML and others in St. Louis that have done such a phenomenal job in this short amount of time to organize and engage as many unique communities as possible in the fight to save KJ's life. You're talking about somebody who was handed a death sentence at 19. And if we could think back to what we were doing and how we were thinking at 19, that right there should cause you to pause and think about the brain science of adults are not fully formed. Their brains are not fully formed until they're about 23 years old. So for me, I got introduced into this work through a visit to the Equal Justice Initiative, the National Memorial for Peace and Justice, which is often called the Lynching Museum, and also the Legacy Museum, and throughout several different cases in my life. So I did enter this field into law, and I started working with different criminal defense teams to develop strategies to help their clients. But for me, I believe this work is so, so important because, as Brian Stevenson makes the connection from lynching to the death penalty, moving death essentially from the outside to the inside, it permeates in the South. Southern whites are so obsessed with death and torture and punishment. And when you think about those who are innocent, which are 185 people have been exonerated from death row to date. So it's 185 times on document that we got it wrong. We have to look at these issues more critically and ask ourselves questions about, is the state qualified to make these types of decisions? The state, all of our implicit and explicit biases that we hold every day, even as jurors. At the beginning of this week, I was a part of a film screening of a lady named Lindy Lou, and she was a white lady from Mississippi, and she served on a capital case. And throughout that capital case, she just became conflicted. She had kind of her awakening throughout that case because it was just 2 weeks. They deliberated for 2 hours and they handed down a death sentence to a young man. Now, this young man, he was guilty of this crime, but she felt in her heart, it's no way I was able to make that decision. I handed this sentence down and they expected me to cook dinner and go to Sunday school and live my life. And she really talks about how her life was changed and she no longer believes in that right that states should hold. So that's why, ML says things like us as Black people need to engage more intently in this fight, because they'll kill a Dylan Roof to kill 10 more of us. They'll do that. So we have to think about the system and its flaws and how costly it is and how racist it is and how discriminatory it is against people with mental illnesses, intellectual disabilities, and other mitigating factors like adverse childhood experiences, rape, abuse, trauma, things like this. And this is why they are pipelined into our system. But let me just land with, more importantly, this system, even the policing system, was set up to keep Black people in check. It was a hierarchy for Black people. After slavery, the Black codes were developed. Black people were sentenced to jail for not having a job or not crossing the street when there was a white person on it. So for me, it's about critiquing the system as a whole. And I believe it starts with the death penalty and with the death, especially in the South.
That's pretty deep. that line hit me pretty heavily. So we got to save Dylan Roof to save 10 KJs. Woo. Okay.
That's hard to talk about. You know, we know Dylan went into the church and intentionally shot Black folks, but we have to zoom out and sit on the balcony and talk about the system. Does this system have a right to decide between life and death? And I would argue to say no.
Who says when the world catches a cold, Black people catch the flu?
Just on the issue where you say white people in the South, you know, it made me think of Malcolm X said, if you south of the Canadian border, you're in the South, because and I agree, you know, this as Derek Jensen said, this culture has a death urge. It's a bloodthirsty culture, especially in Missouri. But we also have to grapple with the fact that the majority of African Americans, as they are, as we're referred to in the research, also support the death penalty, upwards of 53%. And just being in the community on the ground in Chicago, with the homicide rates and the you know the domestic violence and related to that, oftentimes when I'm dealing with people, I hear people say, oh, they need to execute him, they need to get that guy the chair, lock him up and throw away the key. And I just read this book called Locking Up Our Own, which details the history of Black support for the prison industrial complex. So Black people are contaminated and fully entrenched in this culture. And a lot of times we can't distinguish between our own interest I'll just leave it at that, our own interest versus the interest of the state. And a lot of times we believe that the interest of the state and the interest of our community align and resonate with one another. And just not just death penalty, but I've observed Black support for many right-wing and ultra-conservative talking points and policies and legislation. Here in Illinois, we fought tooth and nail to get certain reforms. And now the bail reform, bail justice is in danger. And you have many prominent Black individuals talking about the purge law and spreading myths about rape and murder, the police being unable to detain rapists and murderers anymore, and basically theft is legal, and all this absurdist rhetoric put out by the Moody Bible Institute and other right-wing organizations. So, you know, this is a white pathology, but it's also a Black issue as well. And in terms, and of course, the research demonstrate that educated or college educated Black people, the majority do not support the death penalty and harsh punishment, indeterminate sentence, life without parole. But when you go to populations that aren't college educated, the majority say, you know, lock them up, throw away the key, or give them the chair. In terms of and it's a reactionary thing because of the frustration, because poor and working class people bear the brunt of not just state repression, but also lumpen or street level crime and instability as well.
I definitely go ahead. I was going to say I definitely agree, and even when you're saying that, Diallo, I'm thinking about '94, right? When Clinton did the crime bill, Black people, our elders, were right behind that, and it's shocking to me because just, you know, in the '60s they were all, you know, we're gonna get free and civil rights, but then 20 years later they're standing, or 25, whatever, they're standing behind Clinton, right, with this bill. It is reactionary. They feel unsafe. I know in our community we have an organization, and it's a partner of mine. I love them to death. They're called the Freedom Community Center, and what they're doing is trying to intervene in those situations, trying to get our communities to a point where we can have these discussions. We can, you know, come together. They actually bail people out of our jails and have these classes And so just trying to help people get on their feet and help them, get out of those cycles of violence. So, and their motto is we keep us safe, and we do keep us safe. If that is our intent and our goal, and we do the work to get there, we do keep ourselves safe. Because in my city, I'm in St. Louis, police don't even come when you call 911. I mean, people often talk about the police don't even show up, right? 911 system is broken in this country and in my city. So it's like, you better figure something out if you're in a Black community like Meacham Park. When you call the police, there's no help. But our people definitely fall under that, and it's definitely reactionary. And it's just going to take the work, of the younger generations and all of us to make our elders and make those people feel safe, so that they're not under that, let's punish people even more. Because that's definitely not something that's happening. But go ahead, Goofy, you want to say something?
I mean, I wonder how is it going in terms of the Black, white, young, old who are pro-state. I saw an article, I guess 2 days ago, and at the top of the article, it's like the author, who is probably not emancipatory journalist like Jared, is illustrating the scene of the cop getting shot, and shot him this time, walked up to the car, he fell out, he crawled, and it's like it's humanizing the cop. And I'm curious how it's been with the opposition. And it also talk about how the judge allowed the cops to line the halls of the court to kind of like, show this pro-state attitude. And, and if we're honest, a lot of us have family members who are either cops, or there's a lot of Black people who have family members that's cop. And it's kind of like, I want my dad to come home, or whatever the hell, right? So I wonder how that's been in the struggle in terms of the opposition side of the story, and how they are fighting against what y'all are trying to do. And maybe who are some of those people?
For me, as a preacher's daughter, one of my favorite sayings is, my people perish from a lack of knowledge. And that's something that we really need to really understand, that we have to open books. We have to not be spoon-fed information from one political party to the next. I see that Candace Owens is releasing a new film, and it's a lot of Black people saying, well, I'm about to go over to Candace Owens' side. And it's just like, we can be bought, we can be told things. Be for your own people. And even on that same thread, like even with Kanye West, like Kanye West has said a lot of disparaging things against Black people. We get mad and, we talk about it on Instagram. We shoot it to our friends in a text message group, but nothing happens because there's no coalescing going on to demand that you stop talking about our people. He said something recently about Jews, and he's been dropped from BlackRock. He's been dropped from JP Morgan Chase. He's been dropped from a lot of these larger entities that feed him. What he really wants is money. So that's one thing I really want to talk about also. And also communities, white communities or communities have that are privileged, they have the resources to take care of their own. Their issues are often treated medically versus criminally. I remember when the opioid epidemic broke out, and it was a medical crisis, and we needed to build all these medical facilities for these white kids that were overdosing on these pills and different types of injections. But in our communities, and if we're talking about the 94 crime bill, they were criminalized. So when you talk about our elders, they are taught by DAs to fear their neighbors, to fear their grandsons. Lock him up. That's what he needs. But they don't tell that same thing to that white grandmother that's raising her child. They say he needs to be in a treatment facility. So I would just urge Black folks to be educated and stop being swayed like the river, to stand 10 toes down on what you believe is liberation and support for your own people.
I tell people something often about that opioid, situation. When I talk to white people about, the differences, we didn't have 5K walks and runs for crack. There was no such thing. Okay. We didn't have no day. We didn't have no color shirt, right? We didn't I worked at an office where they did the whole walk run years ago, and they had shirts and they went downtown and ran through the town. We didn't have that. You know, we had cells, we had prisons, and we had foster care for our babies. And, you know, we had hard times, right? People still to this day are in prison, which is why I say F Joe Biden his whole life, because he orchestrated everything in the mid-90s is why my people are still locked up today. So I don't care if $10,000 student loan, I don't care what he do, until he reverses what he did in the mid-90s, he can go straight to hell. That's
Message.
And his VP can too, because she ain't no better. I got smoke for everybody. Anyway, getting back to the point, you know, that is very much, you know what I'm saying, our issues with, and it comes back to that Black people want to be massa over our children, right? We want to be overseer massa. It's like if you beat them enough, if you humiliate them enough, they're going to act right. That's not, it didn't work, you know, back then, because what did Harriet do? She still, you know what I'm saying, freed some people and other uprisings as well, right? There were many slave uprisings.
See, but ML, I talk shit about him, and he jumped. Look who showed up.
Act like you know. Kaboom! Guess who stepped in the room? What up? How y'all doing?
Yeah. Hey, Clemency,
Free KJ.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Yes.
What's up, my man? How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. I was driving and wanted to tap in real quick and just say, definitely free KJ, necessary.
Yeah.
I did get all the comments. Thank you, ML. Dr. Ball and Geechee, the haters, don't worry about them. Peace, Diallo. Anyway, I wanted to tap in when you all get a chance. I'm just here for a few minutes and you know, wanted to stop doing so that support.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome, of course. This is dope. It's dope.
Can I when the opioid versus crack epidemic and the societal response to it, I think we also have to do some more internal criticism and reflection, because you know, as you know, the child of a crack addict and being, you know, intimately familiar with how the Black community responded to the so-called crack epidemic. And even you go back as far as the 70s, where someone had mentioned the new legislation on legal legalization of cannabis and expunging the records of nonviolent cannabis offenders. Back when that legislation, some of the first legislation for legalized and decriminalization came out of Washington, D.C. in the early 70s. And people such as Kwame Ture came out against legalization. Many far leftists, former Panthers, came out against legalization because they saw legalization of cannabis as a conspiracy by the state to basically anesthetize the Black community. They said that, you know, if they allowed for legal cannabis use, then Black people would be strung out and they wouldn't be as astute and clear and motivated to wage revolution if we were all high in the streets, was basically the tone back then. So there's a lot of work that must be done within our community, independent of the state, which is a bloodthirsty and unjust system. But there is a lot of where Geechee had asked about, you know, where's the pushback coming from? And in dealing with these issues, I'm just trying to beat that back. There's a whole community, a population here in Chicago that is fighting against bail reform and police accountability because right-wing operatives have started a campaign funded by billionaires to say that there's a purge law being implemented and that crime will be legal and the police will be completely neutered in their efforts to stem the crime wave in Chicago, which there is no crime wave. There is no explosion in the crime wave there. And it's just falsehood. And I talk to people who are informed, engaged, activists who have fully bought into this. So we have a lot of internal, and then also where you, sister, I just want to touch on where you said it's a privileged population. They're not privileged, they're pathological. And we have to change that narrative, because Privilege is something you give a well-behaved child. But when your status in the society comes and your status and opportunities and mobility in the society comes at the expense of hyper exploitation of other people and the denial of the ability to live dignified lives that you impose on other people, that's not privilege, that's pathology. That's all.
Definitely. Yeah, I've seen these people and they are entitled maybe, but privileged, they definitely are not. It's bad. I did want to, if that's okay, Dr. Ball, kind of turn it back to like what's happening right now. I was looking in the comments a little bit and people kind of asked about the petition and, they can call the governor or what they can do. So I definitely wanted to touch that a little bit concerning Kevin. We have a toolkit. So it's called a Clemency toolkit. It's a 3-page, I think 3 or 4 page PDF file, and you can find it at Take Action for KJ, all caps, bit.ly/Take Action for KJ. And it has everything you need, honestly. It has sample captions if you want to get on social media and post something. It has links to videos, some of these clips that we've shown. It has, verbiage if you want to call the governor, and we do encourage people to call the governor. His office now is not necessarily going to help, but my point is make these people uncomfortable and, just bring attention to what's going on. We've had those days where we had people call the governor's office and they hate it. And so as much as I can bother them, that's what I'm going to do. So we definitely have scripts about that and other information in that toolkit. So again, it's Take Action for KJ. And we definitely appreciate people going there, signing a petition, which is also a link. So I try to put everything in that document that you'll need. So we appreciate people sharing, talking about him. I just noticed the last few, we do this all the time. We get on an issue, I call it squirrel, look squirrel, right? And we get to, doing whole dissertations about, Kanye's white power t-shirt or whatever the hell it was, white people t-shirt or white lives matter t-shirt. And we talked about that, and people have whole dissertations about all type of stuff. I remember when Rihanna broke up with her boyfriend not long ago. Women had whole paragraphs full of why that didn't work or why it should have worked. So I just really want to turn people to have those conversations, make those 4 or 5 paragraph tweets, and get on TikTok and talk about Kevin and talk about things like the Alabama prison strike. Right now in Alabama, since the end of September, I believe they've been on strike because the conditions are so bad. So do those things, right? Go deep into something, get fascinated with something, but get fascinated with something that's going to affect your everyday life and your people. Because the people watching this right now, y'all either got somebody in prison, know somebody that just got out, know somebody about to go in, or so you're connected somehow to the carceral state, because we all are connected to the carceral state. And so I really want people to, do those things when it comes to Kevin and when it comes to these other issues, as fixated as you were when, Nikki got an argument with her husband or whatever is going on, right? Cardi got into it with some rapper's girlfriend. I just kind of look at the stuff quickly. I don't even know what them people be talking about, but get focused on these things as much as you are those things. So the toolkit we are trying to push. We're also going to be doing some actions, which I appreciate Kalonji as well. Next Friday, we're going to have a meeting to discuss what actions we're going to take locally and nationwide. We want to ask people to do like solidarity rallies or marches or protests just to get, KJ locally, in your news cycle. But here in Missouri and St. Louis, we are going to be organizing some events and some, to make some people uncomfortable. We're going to be organizing that for next month. So I really appreciate people getting involved in any way you can. Like I said, some people will be here, but if you're on socials and if you have a following, and if you're normally talking about celebrity gossip or whatever, you can talk about these things as well, right? So I definitely want to push the fact that we need to focus on what affects our everyday. I recall a couple years ago, Monique got into it with Netflix, right? And she wanted everybody to boycott Netflix and, get mad at Netflix with her. I can't get mad at Netflix with you because I'm trying to feed Black people in the city of St. Louis. Okay.
Well, plus now she made up with Lee Daniels and Netflix and everybody. She got a deal, so she's good now. So
and we ain't got none of that money. We
Right.
ain't, and I'm not expecting it, but that's not affecting us. People
So
we got
let me.
to support her.
Can I jump in real quick?
Because, hold on, Kalaji, just real quick. I just want to, because Michelle and everybody did such a great job of putting together a roundtable. We got one more guest. I just want to welcome Teresa to the program. Good morning to you. Welcome. I understand you were a childhood friend of Kevin, but welcome. Good morning. And then I'll step back. You can introduce yourself, say a few words, and then Kalonji, you could take it from there if you like.
No doubt.
Well, good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, I am a childhood friend. I've been knowing Kevin since the 4th grade. So going through this process, seeing everything and just being there, him calling me from prison, him going through the journey with me through college, and me just keeping him abreast of, what I'm learning. So it's good to keep him, in good spirit. In this situation, I don't know everything that Michelle talked about because I just got on, but we're morally pushing for the fact of these 2 different cases that prosecuting attorney Bob McCullough handled. Let's say that there has been a new release report that showed that racism played a factor in these 2 verdict cases. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Trenton Forrester, young man, Caucasian man. He shot a police officer point blank in the face. And similar to Kevin, his was more premeditated because he went on Twitter talking about how he wanted to kill police. He came out saying in several tweets, somebody's going to catch a body. And just happened that next morning at the girlfriend house creating ruckus, they called the police on him. And he was sitting in the car. Police approached the car, asked to see his hands, and boom, he shoots him dead in the face. Then tries to shoot his officer. And when this went to trial, Bob McCullough, they used the fact that he had mental issues. They used all these other mitigating factors in his case to not give him the death penalty. And when it came time for Kevin Johnson during his trial, they said, no, we won't use these mitigating factors. So what? You had a lousy childhood. So we just want to put forth the difference in these cases because we know too many times statistics shows that African Americans are always unfair sentence. We always have unfair sentences all the time when it comes to these to the judicial system. And I think that's more that we want to shed light is on how both similar cases, both boys were 19, and nobody's talking about Trenton Forrester doing these comparisons. And I think that's something we need to bring to light, get some exposures on this bias, this racial bias. And also,
no, that's a great one. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, and then we have to think about, so I am a media relations specialist. So they tell us, don't handle cases that you have some type of relations to, because you can lead with this bias way when you're writing. So I would say the same for the prosecuting attorney. Bob McCullough has a history that everybody knows that when he was 12, his father was a police officer and he was killed in the line of duty by a black man in the projects. From there, he has always led with this pushing harder sentences towards African Americans, especially ones that killed cops, So it's always going to be a bias with any case that he reviews, especially if it has anything to do with African Americans killing a white police officer.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I haven't talked about Trent's case yet, and that is, and actually I'm when I get some time this weekend, I'm going to make up some graphics, but it is very, pivotal and present. And one reason is recently our local paper wrote an article about Kevin, and when this article is online, they have a comment section, and all the white folks in the comments are like, oh, when you kill a cop, you need to be executed. and they should do what the family says. And I'm looking at that like, well, the wife of the wife of the cop that Trent Forrester killed, she wanted him to get death penalty. She was mad when the prosecutor wouldn't seek death penalty in that situation. So it's like, only Black people, that only applies to us. We all know that, right? We all understand that. But even these people who are so disconnected don't understand that white men can kill a white cop or a Black cop. Actually, we have in our city, a white man killed a Black cop. He is not facing execution. It was in St. Louis City, not St. Louis County, which is where Kevin's case is. But, when white folks do something, we got to look at their mental health. We got mitigating. We got to give them every benefit of every doubt. And those cases are very, very similar. So we are going to be, and here's the thing too. I've been talking about 4 or 5 media people, journalists, asking them, write about the differences in these 2 cases. Write about Bob McCullough's racism. Can you do a comparison between Kevin and Trent? And they keep telling me, oh, we'll look into it. Yeah, we might do that. They ain't biting, right? And so that's what media is. They're going to keep talking about Kevin and him being a cop killer, and he, did all this wrong, but they're not going to want to actually compare what happens to our people versus other people. But I am going to definitely keep pushing, that issue. But I know Kalonji wanted to say something a few minutes ago.
Yeah. Real quick. Definitely, I appreciate the work that you all are doing and the work that we're attempting to do together. And I think that first and foremost, I want to say the toolkit that you have on the site, ML, is an organizer's dream. It's an easy joint. You know what I'm saying? And I've built cases, you know what I mean? And it's difficult because of the fact that you have to always build from scratch. You have everything you need. And I'm talking to the audience right now. Everything you need is already on the site. It's a simple thing. It's step by step. It don't get no easier. You know what I'm saying? The only thing that she can do to help you any further would be to hold your hand and walk you through it, which you don't need to do. On
all
the question,
in the show description too. Just look below if you haven't seen it already. It's all down there.
Without a doubt. And when it comes to because I keep hearing us compare Black lives and white lives, I'm gonna have to, and this is gonna sound off the rail, but I'm beginning to think that Kanye was right, because white lives matter makes more sense than Black lives matter. Now, what am I saying when I'm saying this? I'm saying to the state, white lives matter. To the colony, to the institution that we're a part of, white lives matter. Black lives don't even matter to the people that came up with the slogan. If they did, $90 million plus would have been used to build institutions to move us a little bit further. You know what I'm saying? I was listening right before I hopped on, and I heard my man Geechee, shout out to Geechee. I heard you mention artists, and you all talked about, the role of the artist, so on and so forth. There's no neutrals in war. We must understand that, right? I'm an organizer. I'm not expecting no entertainer to free me. I'm not expecting no entertainer to fight for me. But what I am expecting is, if I call on you, if you can't do nothing but post it, then goddamn it, post it, or let's deal with whatever we got to do with when I see you, because that's how we do. Okay. So right before I hopped on, I did reach out to T.I., because I know you mentioned T.I. as my friend, and I want folks to be clear. I don't have any friends. I have comrades and I have associates. Okay. I don't have no goddamn friend, because if you ain't doing the work I'm doing, then we can't be friends. You understand what I'm saying? But I do know that I can reach out to artists. I can reach out to whoever and say, listen, this is what I need. You already know what we do. As my man, Chairman Fred Jr. says, I don't need you to fight for me. I just need you to get me to the ring. I already know how to fight. You know what I'm saying? So I reached out to a dude. I said, listen, man, I need you to, we got a brother that's on death row. I don't know if you've seen my post or whatever. No, I ain't seen it. Okay, I need you to post this joint about KJ. Before I got off the phone with him, he's like, all right, it's already posted. You know what I'm saying? Now, fill me in on the details. He didn't say, well, I got to check with my handlers or whatever, so on and so forth. He already know how I get down, because it's about establishing relationships. Now, that don't mean I'm down with his politics. We ain't hanging together, none of that shit. I'm simply saying that we have to be strategic.
We have to be savvy with our organizing because of the fact that we're looking to save the life of a man. When we did the thing with Troy Davis, we had everybody on board from Killer Mike to the Goo Goo Dolls, the Indigo Girls. We had them on joint. I had folks from Law and Order calling me, talking about how they can get down with this situation. I didn't say, well, y'all ain't really down and shit, and and fuck y'all because where was y'all at before and all that. We trying to save this brother's life. So my personal shit, whether I listen to your music, whether I like your shit, whether I like your post, that's irrelevant. At the end of the day, what's the goal? You know what I'm saying? When we organize, sometimes we got to organize with people we don't fuck with. Part of my language, Jared. I know I'm not on the remix right now, but we got to deal with folks. I organize with Amnesty International. I organize with white folks that I didn't like, and I told them to their face I didn't like them. And this is what the fuck we need to do, and that's that. It's not I'm not up here to impress y'all. This is me. This is my real life. You understand what I'm saying? So I need us to understand that because of the fact that I've seen, folks post shit online or such. Now listen, when you organize and you can out-organize me, motherfucker, tell me about your criticisms. Until then, get in line and let's do what the hell we got to do. You understand what I'm saying? The folks that ran with Harriet, they didn't check to see what was her religion. Are you a Christian? You know what I'm saying? I don't like the shoes you wore. You know what I'm saying? I don't like the kind of gun you got. We get caught up in.
Well, personally, Kalonji, I only escape with Baptists.
Well, you might be. I believe it.
I'm Baptist too.
Hey, so you.
No, I'm not. I'm not none of the above. I'm just making.
Great. She baptized y'all in the water when y'all walk past. So good.
Hey, my man Diallo said he ain't running with no Christians, no Muslims, nobody. He said he just sure did. He gonna eat some biscuits and fuck that. I'm gonna have my
Diallo was the one saying, "What religion is you, Harriet?"
No,
but hold on.
No, that's not. It's close, but that's not my position. But it's damn close though.
You made a really good point about if we do the work, the grassroots and the grass tops, then those influencers or public figures, they will follow us. But I'm going to say something very short. I know that something else is supposed to happen after Kalonji was supposed to speak, but this may be controversial. I don't know. I'm just going to throw it out there. We need you Black men in this fight because this is affecting you more than it's affecting us. It's more Black men that are on death row for discriminatory issues than it is women. Women can be social justice warriors for so long. And we appreciate you for jumping in on the fight, at the 9th hour sometimes. But we need you to have these conversations before there are dates set. We need you to come with us. I'm going to DC in 2023 to sit down and talk to some of these lawmakers about commutation of these sentences on the federal death row because of things that we've uncovered in the appellate process. We need you. In Atlanta, I'm in Atlanta right now. We have celebrities and rappers. They'll speak out when it's the 9th hour. But when it doesn't affect them, and as I quote Young Thug, they're iced out. So we need you to have some pre-organization strategies to join us in this fight, this death penalty abolition fight, before there are dates set. So thank you for your work, Kalonji. Thank you, Teresa, and also thank you, Emma.
Thank all of you.
I wanted to just jump in there, and definitely we need Black men, and I do know Kalonji has been on the ground, like I said, for Troy Davis and other issues. But I do think in this movement, right, this movement is very difficult to navigate and be in the middle of. And so it's almost like the religious white people formed a lot of the actual organizations, not the organizing, right, but the organizations. And since then, it's almost like our people are absent. We have one elder Black woman in the movement, and back in like the 80s and 90s, she was telling me in these organizations and in these meetings, she was the only Black face there, right? So in addition to the organizing in the streets, I need Black men, and I talk about this all the time. I need Black men on our boards. This past year, I tried to get Black men on my board in Missouri on the board of directors because they be wilding, okay? And I think we have 2 Black men right now that had been on there before, but the one Black man I was trying to bring in, he was busy and some stuff going on in his life, which I get. But like, we need men in those spaces. When I go to these meetings, Joya can attest, I'm me. I navigate the world as me. This is me all the time, every day, 24/7. And when I go into these meetings and speak what I need to say, you know, Joya supports me and the other leaders, but I do need Black men in those spaces because they are affected, right? They are, Kevin was 19 years old, again, when he got on death row. Last year, October the 5th of 2021, this state executed an intellectually disabled man who had been horribly abused his entire life. And so, you know, and I need men to be in those seats, in those spaces, in those meetings when we're talking about these things, because there are a lot of older white religious people. And I appreciate what they do, but they are not in our communities, and they're not. And so our voices have to be louder. And, you know, that's why I'm here, and that's what I'm trying to bring in. So definitely appreciate Joya for that. I did want to kind of pivot to talk about a Black woman, Kevin's daughter. And she brings so much humanity and so much connection to him in this space because she's just a sweet young girl. She's 19. She's the same age her dad was when he did this killing of the cop and was put on death row. And she is very close to her father today. And so it's just, you know, something that I really want people to understand. So thank you, Dr. Ball.
No problem.
Hey fam, I got to get ready to roll, but I'm here for support. I got to pick up one of my nephews, so much love to everybody, and I'm rumbling with y'all. All right.
Graduated, especially since I graduated early, and even though he's been away in prison, he's been more supportive in my life than most of my friends' fathers.
In September of 2007, Dana, Corey's mother, was murdered. She was 18 years old. Corey was 4 years old. I think that was like the hardest part to cope with. You know, that's when I felt a true obligation to her because I was her only parent. So this is me and my daughter, her first Christmas, 2003. When I was 17, my daughter Corey was born. And I didn't have anything, you know, no money, no real place to live. I was in a group home, but I just knew I wanted to be her dad. So, you know, I felt kind of like an obligation to do for her, just like I had for Bam Bam, that same kind of, and she immediately became my priority. Her mother, Dana was younger. Dana was 14. Neither one of us had anything. So in September of 2007, Dana, Corey's mother, was murdered. She was 18 years old. Corey was 4 years old. And I remember when I had a contact visit in the county jail. The first thing out of her mouth was like, "My mama did." She said she had Kool-Aid coming out her head. I think that was like the hardest part to cope with, you know, being a protected person and not being able to do anything. That's when I felt a true obligation to her because I was her only parent, you know, because that's my goal, to be the best father I can be. And so I had some communication with other people here and told like, this is what you need to do. You need to communicate with her as much as possible. And I did that. And I tried to find people in this real world, the free world, to try to, you know, be of an influence in her life as well. Being in prison, I still try to do everything I can for her.
I'm expecting a boy, and he's due September 13th. So right around the time my uncle Bam Bam's birthday, which is September 12th. His name is going to be Caius, and that means rejoice. I want for my dad to be able to watch me continue to grow and also my baby to grow. And I'm sorry. it's hard because I know that if it does happen, he's not gonna be here. He's not gonna be here to watch me grow, continue to make him happy. He's not gonna be able to see me be a better parent than what he was able to be and what my mom wasn't able to be.
Listen.
Thank you.
Sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say thank you for playing that. Corey is such a sweet kid, and she's lost her mom, and we really are trying to save her dad. He has been able to be involved in her life, partly because one of those teachers who understood they failed Kevin, they have been there for Corey and kind of like a liaison between Kevin and the school. So he has been involved in her life. They're very close. And I just think about, this 19-year-old girl losing her dad. And interestingly enough, she can't attend the execution because you have to be 21 in Missouri to attend the execution, but you don't have to be 21 to die, right? And so I just, I talk about her a lot, and we're doing a companion campaign, Clemency for Corey's dad, just because she endears so much sympathy and empathy. And I want people to understand those connections. We all, have, nieces and daughters who are 18, 19, 20, and we can relate, to how she's feeling. And just want to, put her out there as the last part of this conversation. I appreciate you having, but definitely wanted to, talk to other people, and, how you all feel.
Listen, thank you very much. And I want to say that unfortunately that I do need us to wrap up. I just have to go. But I want to let MLU, Joya, you, Teresa, you, and others, and Dawn and everyone else know you are all welcome back on this show, on this extended platform, anytime for this case, for related work. We can schedule that immediately if, or whenever. And I'm very appreciative for all of you, the work that you're doing, for coming on here, helping us get clear on this and get the word out. And again, you're welcome back anytime. Of course, Geechee, Diallo, thanks to you as well. To the remixers, thanks to you as well. Thanks for helping us get to 20,000 subscribers. Please keep up that good work. But anyway, I'll let you all take us out, but any last words from you all, please share them. And again, forgive my somewhat of a abrupt and quick end. But yeah, anyway, thank you all very much. Go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Ball. Just wanted to, thank you, and just put out there Clemency for KJ. Go to, and our website on socials is in my handle there, MADPMO on all social platforms, and MADPMO.org as well. So please go learn. It's a learning process. Please get educated. We don't want to put out misinformation. So learn about the case, share the videos, share what you can on all social platforms. And I talk to a lot of people, so please reach out to me as well at MADPMO. So thank you for having us today, and appreciate this time. Thank you, Geechee and Diallo as well, and of course, Joya and Teresa and Dawn. I thank my sisters too.
Right on.
Okay.
All right, everybody.
If you're willing to fight for it. That's my favorite quote too, so listen.
Now say it again. I'm gonna let you take us out on that. Go ahead.
Chairman Hampton said, "Peace to you if you're willing to fight for it."
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.